think where data is really coming in, especially as I reach the end of my degree, is that it's allowing me to try to ask these questions about large bodies of text, specifically newspapers or things that are circulating literally in the public in ways that I could never do without data science. What Data Plus asks people to do is to look both with a magnifying glass but also like with binoculars. So it's kind of zooming in but zooming out and finding a way to kind of bring those together in a way that's accessible and communicable to broader audiences. Last summer, which was summer 2018, I was the graduate student mentor / project manager for poverty and images, and looking at presidential database of American presidents. My role in that project was to kind of help guide the undergraduates as they mined the texts. I think in having to communicate with each other, that helps everybody communicate with the broader world and society, which we really saw on the last day of the summer project when there was an info fair and they set up posters and people from the community at Duke just came and asked them questions, and it was really exciting to see our 3 undergrads just share their work and see the excitement and expertise they had really gathered.
I've been working with the Syrian refugee crisis and the analysis of photojournalism. I did a follow-up project with students interviewing journalists during the semester to understand the journalistic side of it. Then the next summer we were working with presidential documents, focusing on video analysis as well as word frequency and statistics of poverty.
I'd constantly been hearing things about digital humanities, and I didn't know what the digital humanities was. But this seemed like it could be a good way to step into the digital humanities world and see what it was. So the question I asked, which was, how are women represented on magazine covers? And what does that have to do with the way that society treats women, the way that women gain or lose opportunities in the culture, the spaces that we permit women to be in? That's a question you could ask and just write a book on, and just do literary analysis. So what was really amazing was when you put that question into the field of data science, seeing all the different ways you can analyze that beyond a literary analysis. But what I've come to understand, especially as I've gone on the job market, is that professionalization means learning to work as a colleague across disciplines, especially when there are very few jobs. But it also means learning to be more open about your questions and learning to seek feedback from others. You're only successful in your graduate endeavors and in your research in particular if you learn to ask people who aren't from your area of expertise for help. And the only way that you can actually get good critical feedback is to continue working with people who don't know what you're writing on. But it's also how you learn to ask yourself questions you wouldn't know to ask if you were only working within your field.
Data Plus is part of, I think it's Duke's interdisciplinary innovation at its finest. It's a place where people can pose questions that don't have clear answers and that can be answered with data science, but also complemented by humanistic inquiry.
We can look at the AP database for the Syrian refugee crisis and just find all the photographic images that contain a refugee family, for instance. We can search for that and we can then follow up and see if they've been published or not. So that is a very quantitative question. How many of those photographs get published and where, by what outlet? But it doesn't really address the question that we started with, which is what kind of photos, what kind of compositions will elicit a response that is positive or negative from the viewer. So when we started with that question, we wanted to make sure that we could come back to that conceptual issue with the undergraduates after we've done the first quantitative analysis. I have a couple of students from Data Plus in the past summers who were humanities majors, had no previous experience with data analysis, but now they're getting interested in following up with other internships outside of Duke to learn how to apply those skills more widely.
It is difficult as a graduate student to find time in your schedule, but I think that working with people from data science can give you a better insight in how to approach humanities research than perhaps only doing humanities projects would.
Duke really sells itself as giving a liberal arts education at a research university. I actually think that what has been really unique in my Data Plus experience is that you don't have to sidetrack the humanistic questions and concerns for the sake of training students in this data analysis and computing methods. I think if you can actually do something like that without sacrificing one side of the other and letting students know that they can pursue skills that are really central for their careers, it's really unusual. I can't think of any other program that does that.